Hi, everyone. Welcome to the new edition of Take Me to the Cloud podcast. This is Joe Riccie, partner within the Withum advisory team, and I lead our management consulting team. And today we invited a special guest, Ernest Rolfson. He is the CEO and founder of Finexio. And in a minute, I'm going to ask Ernest to give some more background about himself. But if you're new to Take Me to the Cloud, what we tried to do is share our experiences with others in terms with rethink how work gets done in the marketplace. And even though my team focuses on a lot to do with business systems, accounting, and customer relationship and warehouse management, we will invite, as you might have listened to in previous sessions, other people who work with us to extend services to our client. Because at the end of the day, Withum just wakes up every day and figures out how to help you grow your revenue and be more profitable. With that, Ernest, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to see you again, Ernest. Say, for the audience, would you describe to them your journey? I found it very fascinating when you and I met probably a year ago, and I think the audience would love to have that context.
Well, journey as a professional started in banking and management consulting, and I was either unlucky or lucky to get involved in working capital advisory and accounts payable consulting, and was really in the weeds with some large corporates around payables and payables management. Turns out I found it pretty interesting and saw what a big problem managing the payment facilitation of bills and invoices actually was, and how much money there was to save and make. I wound up getting deeper involved in the electronic payment industry at MasterCard before moving on to the broader software world, and again saw what challenges there were, particularly in some verticals like the healthcare and insurance industries, where I said, I think I want to start my own company focused on accounts payable payments and business to business electronification, and decided to start my own company to do just that. So that's what we did, and now years later, after coming through something like COVID, where there was an urgent need and really requirement by CFOs to navigate through cloud-based electronic digital transformation solutions, specifically around payments and working capital, that I would say the last 16 years of my career has really come into the best use so far. So it's been a fun journey, and excited to share whatever words of wisdom or past experiences I can that's relevant for the audience here.
Great. And so from that, you started your company, Finexio.
That's correct. Yeah, about 6 years ago, started Finexio. It's accounts payable payments as a service. Um, and I think that's important because, getting payment methods, things like paper check, ACH, wire, card, foreign exchange, you can get those things. If you're a, large corporate, you can get those things from your bank. Those are commodity products. But the challenge I saw, working with the types of customers I've worked with, ranging from $100 million businesses to multi-billion-dollar multinationals, was the implementation and the ongoing usage and administration of payables, um, vendor identification, enrollment, bank account collection and storage, physical production and delivery of payments, payments exceptions, refunds, returns, reconciliation, stopped payments, all of the fun things around the cost of doing business, that I said, what, I think, robots and machines can handle this better than people. And if we could combine all of these payment methods into a single offering and have a really sophisticated software as a service layer around that as a wrapper, that could be really compelling to businesses that, again, they have to make payments, they have to pay bills, but that is not their core business focus. They're a medical manufacturer, they're a pharmaceutical manufacturer, they're a law firm. That's not their specialty payments, but they have to do it, and they need a good solution that they can rely on, that they can trust, but that is simple and works with the processes and procedures they have today. So that's what we do at Finexio.
And when we learned that about your company, and by the way, your people are so great to work with, right? All
Yeah,
charged up, passionate
they're nice.
about it.
They're psyched up. Yeah,
They really are. Um, and so when we're implementing accounting and ERP software solutions, right? And we heard your story, we said,
right.
boy, he's got it right, because we still see, many accounts payable teams today, right? As much as we encourage them to think differently, make it something very easy, go to ACH, right? They're still insisting upon paper checks. And I got to tell you, it slows down our implementation, because now we
Right.
got to work with a forms vendor, and they got to work with the bank, and they take some time. And whether it's plain paper stock or even pre-printed stock, it's like, stop.
Why?
Let's look
Why?
at how many touches you have there. It's not very effective. And you're right. In the pandemic, we had one client, because everyone is basically working from home.
Sure.
Their team would go to the office, they would print the checks, they would put them in a FedEx envelope, send it to the CFO's homes, okay?
Love
And
it.
then she would then sign the checks, put them back in a FedEx envelope, send them back to the office, okay? And then that controller would come in, or the AP person would come in, and they would stuff envelopes. And I said,
Those are
wow,
expensive checks.
yes.
Yeah.
On average, what do you see an AP cost per check?
Well, we ask that question a lot, and there's some things online. If you do some googling, it turns out the average seems to be around $8 a check these days, which would include the manual work and the manual energy, but also factors in the physical production costs, things of that nature. The thing that really chews things up to are the exceptions and the lost checks, the stolen checks, the fraudulent checks. It's, when things are going fine and well, that's all good, but it's just not the case. But it's that lost labor time where a lot of companies don't have dedicated labor force just printing and mailing checks. And it's like, wow, if that piece could just be eliminated, and these folks are there in and around AP, which, AP does impact heavily cash management, which is a very strategic element if I'm a CFO thinking about. And these people can't stop and think about that if all you're doing is spending hours a week at the printer and stuffing envelopes. And that poor CFO client of yours, hopefully we can help her out, but this is just not very efficient. But you made a very interesting comment, which is around the ERP and the ERP implementation. And so I think what we're seeing now from the CFOs we work with is they want to get more out of the investment that they're making or have made in their ERP. Let's face it, right? You're buying an expensive piece of software. You're working with a great advisory firm like Withum to help you understand what the best practices are and get that into place. The ERP itself does not, out of the box, have necessarily a payments function embedded in. It might have some connectors and the like, but it doesn't have any intelligence and any automation around driving process improvement and/or payment adoption throughout a supplier base. So what we're seeing as a best practice is if I'm putting in the ERP and either I'm changing ERPs or I'm putting in something fresh where I didn't have anything, um, getting as many digital tools as you can baked in, leaving the paper and manual processes behind, certainly around payments, something like Finexio that can work with virtually any ERP. It's about data exchange, right? Data exporting, and having something that again, if you know and can understand the data that's generated from the accounting side, if you're working with a payments as a service solution, all the back end of, the printing and mailing and deciding and sending and sorting and settling can be handled elsewhere. And you can get the data back and review it as you like. So I think that's a critical juncture that you said. And I know a lot of clients of yours right now are thinking about cloud transformation. And I think it's about, how do I get as much value out of this shift to cloud as I can? And payments and manual processes is one of many, but I think a critical factor to consider.
Oh, it most certainly is, because I think another point you made is it doesn't have to be a brand new accounting or ERP
Yeah.
implementation. Many times we're going in just to optimize and
Mhm.
help a company understand how to better use the software.
Yeah.
And that's just a great layup to say, to look at that accounts payable payment as a service, introduce them to the services at Finexio, right? We at Withum, we're really bent upon modernization. Okay.
Yeah.
You had a couple of key words in there. You talked about automation. You talked about intelligence. And prior to that, describing the company, you talked about robots. Okay. There's some artificial intelligence included in there. And that's the world we're working in today. We're working in a very digitized world.
Sure.
And what we're trying to do is help companies understand you need to be marching towards the digital economy. Okay. Um, and what your group has put together in terms of a service, and we've already brought it to quite a few Withum clients, right? They're looking at it and saying, wow, I love this idea. Okay. Because other reasons, one CFO, remember, he said, my AP person is really tired of doing this. I would love to take her away from that
Yeah.
and give her another responsibility, right? Um,
You
so
know
the
what this
whole,
does?
yeah,
Not to cut you off.
yeah,
To put what you said another way, it's about scaling.
yeah,
The technology allows you to scale, um, and it shouldn't scare people. It's about, hey, if I'm in business and my business is growing, can I afford not to look at digital first? Can I afford to hire, if I'm going to be sending out, say, 30% more payables next year? Do I need to add another headcount to do this job when I can press a button in my ERP and that sends out a payment instruction file that now all my payments are delivered for me? Like, and I don't have to have another person now, and it's instantly reconciled to your ERP. You have to think of the technology from that perspective as a partner and as an enabler to growth versus something scary or confusing to understand. And I think sometimes putting it in those terms makes it not only more palatable, I think more exciting
certainly.
for people.
Look, everyone runs to numbers, metrics, KPIs, right?
Yeah.
That's how business decisions get made. Let's be honest. So if I could segue into metrics and how your company is driving value,
Right.
share with the audience. What are you seeing out there?
Well, a couple things. Uh, Look, there's not a single payment method that will be right for each company or their payees or suppliers, or whether they're paying 1099s, individuals, other businesses. So I think there is certain cost reduction metrics. Certainly, if you're starting with a paper check and you're going to something like an ACH, you're saving something on order of $7 and say 50 cents a transaction, something enormous where you're not having a physical, operation that now is completely digitized. Now, if you're say paying say FedEx with a check, and then we realize, you know what, we can use an automated computer system to pay through FedEx Online with a digital card, that $8 check that's eliminated. And now, because it was a card transaction, there's $8 of cash back from that card transaction. And that's all done, again, by a computer system. And you're enjoying the benefit of the cost saving and the money there. So in all instances, for the types of businesses that you serve and that we serve, it's a minimum 6 figures of cost reduction, and typically another 6 figures of cash back and found money in that regard, discounts, rebates, cash back, cash flow improvements. Right, again, it's substantial. But again, the cost of not putting that in is over a 5-year or 10-year period. It's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of EBITDA around, again, a scaling, growing organization. And that's the critical piece. It's very hard to calculate that, but you can get there pretty quickly, right?
Right. And I've seen that through many interactions we've had thus far with them clients, right? And, you know, let's be honest, there is skepticism, okay?
Yeah,
And until you explain it and they can see the process, right? You even said to the customers, look, if your supplier or vendor still wants a paper check, you're going to give them a paper check.
sure.
You're not going to try to convert them. However, in many instances, you have the opportunity to improve vendor relationships for our joint client because they might come and say, can you pay me earlier? I
Right.
like that example. Take us through that example.
Yeah, it's about having more options, right? And providing the education and the options to the suppliers to say, look, there's a cost of getting the paper and waiting for it to come in the mail and depositing it and waiting for the money to clear in the account. So we provide other electronic options at different price points or costs so that they can decide and better choose what's right for their business. Speed is a big factor. If they'd like to get their payment 30 days faster, which we can facilitate at no cost to the buyer, then yes, there is a 2% fee for that. A card, very secure. They don't have to share their bank account information. The payment is guaranteed. The funds are there. Their bank may charge them a 2 to 3% fee. So it's about understanding the trade-offs, and that's how you drive the value and improve the relationship with the supplier while migrating down the checks. And the way that we do this is by helping customers identify who they are paying, how they're paying them, when they're paying them. A lot of that data, Joe, as you know, already sits in their ERP, unmined, unleveraged, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
about unlocking the data assets that you have with the system to basically create the treasure map, right? To find the gold. Um, we're then driving digital communications, websites, landing pages that are easy for the suppliers to navigate, to get the content, to get the relevant information, to understand that they don't have to wait to get a check in the mail if that's not what they prefer. Online embedded chat. We follow that up with digital emails, beautiful colored inserts into the checks as another tip of the spear to help again let the suppliers know you probably waited 5 or 6 days to get this money. You could have had it instantly
Mm-hmm.
if only you
Mm-hmm.
signed up for ACH, followed up by a friendly phone call to the people we see that are getting the checks all the time to say, did you know that there's electronic options? So it's a plethora of things, Joe, to help migrate that over. And we wind up seeing that the majority of what's available, right, of the paper to electronic conversion within 4 months of these digital and manual touch points are completely transformed. And what our clients tell us and partners say is like, wow, given that we have to pay 5,000 or 10,000 vendors the course of a year, and we change 10% of them a year, we do business with all new people all the time. This process would take us years if we were going to facilitate this transition.
Mm-hmm.
That's the value. There's no silver bullets. There's only lead bullets. But using the data and using modern web technology with a good user experience and optionality and education, that's what drives the customer results.
You bet. You're taking data and you're turning it into information. Okay. Valuable information
Well
and
said.
right and giving it back to the client because as you're building more of your own client base, you're seeing some of the same vendors already. So, they
Over
already
and over.
expect it
It's
over
a
and over
scale
again.
factor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Going back to metrics, you were describing, hey, look, there's like a 6-figure savings here. So let's give the audience some more context. How much AP spend do they need, right? In order, to drive that efficiency and effectiveness. What do you think?
Well, we're seeing on average somebody spending, corporate spending, say 20, 30 a year. Um, hard dollar cost savings in the $30,000 to $50,000 range, with another $30,000 or so of say cash back, with some several $100,000 a month in cash flow improvements. That's on the lower end, to where I think those numbers start to get interesting and impactful. It gets into guaranteed six-figure benefits, and let alone the peace of mind on the security and control and visibility when you're spending more in the order of at least $50 million a year. And so again, it only scales with size to where you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year. You're looking at seven figures in a first-year situation of adopting a digital-first posture around payables and cash flow management.
I think that's great. You just helped a lot of listeners think about it's right for them for the most part. Okay. Now it's a very easy step to start collecting data, right, from them, and helping them through the business case. If I segue to two other points about your metrics, and I'm going to tie this back to Withum's year of innovation, where we are we're always looking for innovative ideas, right? But consciously, it's part of our mission this year. And our Finexio company and relationship with Ernest, right? We see them fitting into the year of innovation. So there are two ways we see that. Typically, there's an incremental category for innovation, and that's like small step changes, right? Process improvements, efficiency, and effectiveness. And Ernest was really great to describe that, right? On average, an $8 per cost for an AP check. You can see that going down to $5. There's even some more efficiencies where people, more high value tasks, right? Cash flow impacts. So that's one aspect to that innovation, right? What was equally exciting for us was the evolutionary aspect category to innovation for us. And that's where it's generating new markets, new ideas, services. And so if you listen closely to Ernest, he was saying that based on that spend, right, and the conversion to card, right, you very well could offset your costs for this program and generate a revenue stream for yourself. So, Ernest, do I got that right?
You do, but here's what's big, and here's, I think, what's different, if we haven't really narrowed in on that, is, again, we've been talking about the benefits of electronic payments, of more offers, of leveraging data from the ERP. These have been done before and could be done by hand yourself with your bank with little to no support. And what we said here, and what's not just the incremental improvement, but the step change improvement, was we said, this should all just happen for you, is part of a package instantly. And we wanted to have an experience that was different than going to the bank and buying, say, some individual products that you figure out. Kind of like going to the grocery store and buying ingredients and coming home and cooking the meal. We said, for a business whose core focus is not payments, but they have to do it because they have to pay bills, why not deliver an experience and end state that feels more like going to a fine dining restaurant? The meal is already beautifully assembled. It's all pieced together. You got you pay a nice price. You go and you get the meal, and you're like, you know what? I'm glad I didn't spend those 3 extra hours trying to, stuff that duck at home when I came here.
Mm.
It just happened for you, and now it's cost effective enough to do it this way. The data intelligence, the automation is there to do it this way now, and so you can. It's more common now than ever before, thankfully, due to COVID, which was horrible on one hand, but positive in that businesses realized they had no choice. So now supplier preferences, the companies you have to pay are like, we prefer it this way now because they don't want to go back to the old way either. Look, let's face it, cash is king. So, don't you think there was pain on the supplier side during the pandemic when they were waiting for that 3-week process of sending the FedEx packages back and forth between the CFO, that someone on the other side was waiting to get paid? So it's about cobbling the whole thing together in a very tight package so that it feels more like an experience and it's part of the ERP workflow process versus some disjointed extra thing to manage. And in talking to CFOs, and I'm sure you ask your customers, if your ERP or if your existing workflow could do more for you, why would you not do that? Versus anytime you pitch somebody on, how would you like to try something new, but you're going to have to train your staff and implement all these systems and do all this, and it's going to take about 6 weeks to get up to speed, they're going to say, no, that sounds painful. I don't care about the $5 a check savings, Joe. But if you say, did you know we could unlock this value within your existing process using the data that's already there with minimal change whatsoever? That's now powerful.
Very much so. So we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes. And I thought of another good question that maybe some people are thinking about. And that is they might already have an outsourced service, for AP,
Mhm.
processing and automation, right? And those get packaged onto ERPs. And we see that too with a couple of different software providers. So help the audience understand, is that a competitor for you? How do you work with them? Don't work with them? If you can shed some more insight there.
Yeah, what's interesting, the majority of our business is actually coming from integrated solution sales being provided by leading accounts payable and procurement software packages where they've even completely white labeled this payments as a service into their offering because, again, they realize their customers want to get more value out of the software they've bought. So I think that's very consistent. So we've not found an existing process or platform that this does not jive well with or work in conjunction with. Because here's the thing, the other software solutions or even processes around accounts payable, which is typically around reviewing a bill, approving a bill, perhaps routing it for approval, cobbling together an okay to pay file. The last mile, the payment piece, that's where the most value is because that's where the cash is. That's where the cash flow is. That's where there's significant percentage of dollar savings or yield that can be generated. That's the piece that's disjointed and missing, and that's the piece that Finexio is expert at. So combining the perfect back-end solution with an existing well-running front-end solution around getting the payment ready for payment, the payable ready for payment rather, um, that's where these things can work in concert really well.
Perfect. Perfect. We see it the same way, right? And we explain that to all of our clients that coexistence, complement, you're still going to get the value. What was interesting is the white labeling approach. So maybe some people listening right now are getting this service and they just don't know it's through Finexio.
That is also a possibility. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Ernest, for your time. We're very excited here at Withum to continue to, introduce you to, our clients because this is tremendous value that you and your company are bringing.
Now, look, I appreciate it. Really fun conversation. I think the listeners and viewers can see and tell not just the passion and energy in our voices and in our faces here around this. This is impactful stuff that we understand and why we're so excited to be partnering with you guys around this. But it is a critical priority for CFOs right now, whether it's not reducing costs, driving in efficiencies, moving and adopting to digital, or just getting ready for scale. The payables and cash component is a key component and one now that's on top of mind more than ever before. So we're delighted to be part of the conversation. and work with you on clients' strategic priorities.
Great. And for those listening, stay tuned. We're going to have another episode with Ernest, and we're going to walk through some client case studies because we believe sharing what others have accomplished would be really important. So thanks for listening and have a great day.